Hello everybody and welcome to Rest and Reason. I'm RP the Red Panda and today we're doing the how to fix sorry video. Now, if you like fixed videos but sorry really isn't your thing, go over to this playlist and it has a whole bunch of different games that might be more fun for you. But this is aiming to help anybody who owns Sorry, Trouble, Parcheesi, or Pachisi or Chaupar. Any of those people who own those, I'm hoping this will help you enjoy your game a little bit more. So, let's get right into my fixes. To play this game, Raiders of the Punjab, you will need a Parcheesi board, a Sorry board, or a Trouble board. You will also need 3 dice. I would recommend 3 6-sided dice. That will make it so that there's a little bit less luck, and also so that there's a little bit more control over how you can move your people, but you could use just about any 3 dice. Now, the game works as follows. First, you are going to have however many players you have. If you have 2 players, they're going to control 2 colors diagonally across from each other. So in this case, it would be yellow and green. If you have 3 players, they're each going to control a color, and one of the colors is going to be out of the game. And if you're playing 4 players, everybody has 1 color, but these diagonal from each other groups are going to be on a team. So in this case, it would be red and blue, yellow and green, and those would be your 2 teams. Now, the game ends when you either A, have done 30 rolls with each player. Each player has gotten 30 rolls. Or B, when one player has gotten all of their pawns into the center. Now, in a 2-player game, they only have to get all of the pawns of one of their colors into the middle. That's very important. So, those are the 2 ways the game can end. So what's your goal? Well, I already hinted at it earlier. You're taking a raider, you're starting them on one of the 2 starting spaces in Parcheesi, but in Sorry and in Trouble, they have pre-marked starting spaces, so you go ahead and start there. And so you're going to start, you're going to go around, you need to go past each of the other players' homes. They're places that would be marked start in a Trouble or a Sorry game. Then once you've gone past all of those, you don't have to, but you may go up into the temple steps, which is the way that gets you to the temple up in the center of a Parcheesi board. If you're looking at a Sorry board, that will be your own personal place that will be marked home and then your safe zone. And in Trouble, it will be the warp, and that just represents your own personal temple. Whoever has the most pawns in the middle at the temple wins. So in this case, blue would win, or the team of red and blue would win. If the game ends because one person gets all 4, then obviously the person who gets all 4 won the game. Now, in the case of a tie, such as this case, technically in a 4-player game, everybody would win, because this team and this team would win. So ties are everybody wins. Now, how do you do all of this? Well, you do it by rolling dice. You roll your dice, you move your mice. What you do is you allocate these dice to your pawns, if you're playing a 2-player game, to both colors of your pawns, or if you're playing a 4-player game, you can also do them to your teammate's pawn with permission. So for example, if I wanted to move one of my guys 3 spaces, one of my guys 1 space, and one of my allies' guys 4 spaces, I could ask my ally, hey, can I move your guy 4 spaces? He would say yes or no, or she would say yes or no, and then we would do that. So, those are how you can do it. Now, you may also put all 3 dice on one guy. You can put 2 dice on one guy, 1 die on another. It doesn't matter how you put them out, but you cannot split up the dice, meaning you can't be like, I'm putting 2 on this guy and 2 on this guy from this 4. The die always has to use all of them to move one guy. You also have to use all of the dice you rolled if you can. If you can legally move your guy, meaning he's not already in the temple, if he's not already in the temple, you have to move the people. Here's how it works once you've allocated the dice. So let's say for a minute that I allocated these 2 as 3s and this one as a 5. So I go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, notice how these 2 have landed on the same space. Because they are the same color, that means that they are now a horde. That means in a future round, if I were to have 2 dice or 2 dice that added up to the same number, such as this, I would be able to move these together as one group. So this would go 1, 2, 3 as a group, and it's called a horde. You can do this in a 4-player game with your ally as well. But just like before, you'd have to move this group together as a group by asking permission. However, you can always split up the group. So for example, if you had this where you couldn't move the group together, you could always just go 1, 2 and separate the group, which actually, if you left that one there, created a new group. Cool. Now, these hordes could technically get as big as all of the pawns on the same space. But obviously, because there are only 3 dice, you can only move up to 3 of them together. So the biggest horde that can ever move together is going to be a horde of 3 pawns. Now, if I had landed on top of this green guy with my first guy, I would make that green guy flee, meaning send them back to their home space. Now, you can only send somebody back to your home space if they have the same number of pawns as you, or you have more. So that's where this comes in handy, having these 2 guys together. If a green guy were to move 1, 2, 3 onto these guys, he wouldn't send them home. In fact, these guys would send that green pawn home because they have more pawns. So that's the advantage to getting groups together. The last case scenario is that in moving, you have to pass a horde. Now, if you are passing a horde, let's say this green pawn's trying to get past this red horde, the horde is bigger than the one green pawn, which means that if they try to go past, they're going to go home. They are going to run away. It's so big that they can't get past without the horde catching them and trying to kill them. So they just run home. But if you had 2 greens, they could go past. They could also capture it. Because remember, you have to have the same number of pawns or more pawns to capture. So those are all of the rules for my fix. Now, some specific notes about the specific boards that you might be playing with. With Trouble, the warp is a little weird because there's no central space, no upper space that you get to. So technically, whenever somebody gets on the first space of a Trouble safety zone or whatever it's called, the warp, I think, you just move that one right down to the end and then the next one right next to it and so on and so forth until all 4 pawns are there or until the end of the 30 turns. In Sorry, you will not use the slides. You also have your own colored temple, so you have to go into your own colored temple in Sorry as well as in Trouble. So both of those, you have to go into your own colored temple. And whenever you go into your own colored temple, that's going to obviously count towards team victory. So you'd add up both of those colored temples. In the Parcheesi board, you've already seen pretty much how it works. But the one last thing I need to note about the Parcheesi board is that these castle spots that in the original game you can't get taken when you're on these spots, that does not apply. You can still get taken and thrown back to your home if you're on here. So if I was here and this person comes out, boom, right back to home with me. I'm renaming this the Raiders of the Punjab because now I might be horribly messing up the word Punjab. I am so sorry to anybody from that region of India. But ultimately, my idea was that it seems as though in all of these games, you're going by people's houses and then you're going up. And to me, I actually felt like the places that you go to at the end often feel like you're going up the steps of a temple. So I thought that it seemed to make sense that these were raiders going around in a circle, trying to take things from the other people, and then going up into the temple. So that's why I called it Raiders of the Punjab. So let's get into the original scores for these games. So first off, Trouble was a 1.39 out of 5, which means it gets no recliner. It's not recommended. Then Pachisi got a 1.75 out of 5, and again, that's no recliner and not recommended. Sorry got a 2.03 3 out of 5. And again, that's not recommended. You notice a theme here. And the final one that isn't recommended was Parcheesi with a 2.22. Now that one got pretty close, but was still pretty far from being recommended. The only one I would recommend in its original form is Chaupar, which is a 3.05. And I want to apologize that in my last video I was calling it Chaupar. For some reason my brain put an ER instead of an AR, and I might still be saying that word, and I am sorry. I do my best to just pronounce something as I see it, but that often comes out wrong, and I am sorry for that. So, the fixed score for this game is a 3.46 out of 5. Why does it go up so much? Well, first off, adding a theme adds a lot to this game. Now, I think it could go even higher if you were to produce this game with things that looked like raiders, things that looked like homes, maybe even have some treasures to make it easier to tell which raiders have gone by which places. Like they pick up a little peg or something that represents treasure that they put into their little saddle bag or something as they go by, and they have to put it back if they get sent back. Things like that would make this game a little bit higher, but getting any theme whatsoever makes the game more accessible to people, more fun to play. The other thing that I fixed was making it so that, yes, it is still a luck game, big time, but there's a lot more control over the luck, there's a lot more mitigation, and the luck doesn't stop the flow of the game, because that's the big thing about a luck game. You want to have this ball rolling. You want to have thrills for days. You want every roll to be an exciting, ooh, what am I going to do with this? Oh man, that's a bummer kind of a thing, instead of just, another roll where I can't do anything. Another roll that's just plain old terrible and there's nothing to do with it. That's what you don't want, and this change makes that disappear. So, if you enjoyed this content, if you think that it will help you enjoy this game more, please head over to our Patreon. Even $1 a month can change so much and help us keep doing this channel week after week. And as always, thank you so much for joining us today on Rest in Reason.